So these 2 amazing days are getting to the end. So the closing remarks should start with a big congratulations to all of you. A big congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. This is a true community of practice. If we should define a community of practice, this is a perfect definition of what a community of practice should look like. These 2 days have been also protagonized by generosity. Generosity in sharing good practices, in speaking openly and about concerns, and in bringing very different experiences to the table. So really, congratulations and thank you to all of you. What has been especially valuable is that we brought together alliances that have been recently funded, but also alliances that have more experience, alliances that are into the process of consolidation, and we have been exchanging deeply, and despite the difference on all those alliances, most of the concerns are shared. We have exchanged not only good practices, but also our doubts, our frustrations, our lessons learned, and our expectations. And I think that openness and generosity, it was really make this a community of practice. So because we are all professionals coming from different trajectories and backgrounds, working in what is still new, vibrant, and evolving sector in many ways, and we are all learning by doing. No? We have been hearing about professionalism, but as a matter of fact, in our everyday life, we are solving problems we even never thought we will have in front of us. In fact, even we tried to include a session about mental health in project management and impact management. For different reasons, it did not work out. You will agree that these 2 days have somehow worked as a group therapy, isn't it? Thank you. So this has been a space where we not only have shared practices, tools, but also we have complained, we have reflected, and we have relied on each other, which has been really amazing. So this session has been inspiring, have been enriching, and full of meaningful exchange. And today's workshops, the toolbox and the roadmap workshop, helped us to apply our lessons learned from yesterday, raising literacy around, from the challenges workshops, and for all the sessions we have been participating. And now we have put them together into this toolbox and the roadmap. So now I would like to invite my colleagues, Rafa and Elena, to come to the stage and present us the results of these sessions before we move into the final closing session. So Rafa, Elena, please, big applause for them. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah. Would you like to start?
Yes, I think so. Maybe okay. First the toolbox and the roadmap. Thank you, everyone. It was great being with all of you during this past 2 days. I decided not to present each challenge and each tool for each challenge so you don't fall asleep. And besides, I tried to centralize all of your great ideas. So I think the main conclusion of this toolbox, so what is the most important tools which we already all have, is the staff, the people that work in our alliances. They are already there, they are already very good, very motivated, very ambitious, but they can still be a little bit better for enhancing this project management and make it more impactful. And one of the key would be to make them more organized. How do you make them more organized? So you can have impact managers, you can have dedicated communication team, dedicated impact team, dedicated data analysis teams. So all those people need to have clear roles, clear responsibilities, know each other, know who to contact, and be defined from the beginning. Because often some people have double hats and they don't know who to go to, and they don't know in which roles they are. So what would be really, really useful is to have those roles from the beginning. Also, when it comes to people, it's not just only the staff, but it's also our users, our target groups, so the students, the staff, and they are our ambassadors. So they could be our impact ambassadors, and this was a great idea from one group. Of course, those people would need to be trained to be in permanent contact with our team, so we would need to have incentives, but these people can really help us provoke impact into our daily management. Then all those people, the staff, it's great to have them, but we need to provide them definitions, methodology, training. How can we do that? So we can do capacity building, staff weeks on impact. We can provide them with impact storytelling methodology, also an impact literacy toolkit. So I think of those great ideas have already been put in place in some alliances, but now the goal is to share them with each other. So each alliance can start from tomorrow on to bring them on and to implement them. Then, of course, it was one of the goals of this workshop is to gather our ideas, what are centralized tools, very concretely. So we have impact planning tools, which have already been put in place in the Enlight Alliance, also by the Dutch Erasmus Plus agency, I didn't know about. Then, of course, there are great tools for the collection of data. The best one would be Agora, because it's European, it's funded for an alliance, so it's really a tool for us. But in the meantime, so until we know if it's sustainable and if it gets more funding, we can of course continue using other types of tools, like Power BI, for example, which is a good tool for presenting our results. Then there was also the idea of a repository for alliances, so to centralize all of our tools, our knowledge, and our resources in one repository for all of us. So this would be one objective also. But then you have the staff, the people, the methodology, the tools, so it's better already. But then if you don't have a strategic alignment with your leaders at the alliance level, at the university level, but also at the European, national levels, then it doesn't work. So you need to meet regularly, form strategic boards with strategic level people, but also operational level people, so you don't work in silos completely separately and you are all on the same line. And finally, when you have all of that, of course, what you need to go from a really great managed project to an impactful alliance, you need funding and a long-term sustainability funding. And I think that's also the conclusion from the workshop in Brussels and from those 2 days, that most alliances would like to have this major tool, so really long-term funding so they can work better. That's it.
Keep on. I'm not ready yet, Elena. Keep on running. Keep on running. Thanks, Antonio. Well, you know how reporters work, right? So you guys were discussing, and then I say, and they said, this is not what we said, right? So I start by apologizing because there was a lot of good discussion. I was in one group in particular, in the one of management, and I could see a lot of juicy stuff. I'm sure that they were in the other ones. I was, let's say, reported by the rapporteurs themselves, so I'm the really rapporteur. And I know that many things are missing, but the good news is that all this material, anyway, it's coming together. There will be actions behind that. So regardless of my success or failure in this activity, the materials will still be there, right? So there were several working groups working in the joint roadmap. With the dynamics, the idea is that with time pressure, with fatigue, with a little bit of hangover maybe from wine or food from previous days, it fosters creativity. So we had a number of ideas, and then there were like regrouping and this and that, just to make it faster, right? And then selection of ideas and picking those that they were more relevant, those that they were more feasible, and those could be more impactful. And we were discussing, what does it mean impactful anyway? Should we go back to Wednesday, perhaps, right? Go back? Yeah, and from that, there is actually a balance sometimes between these two things. For example, some more short-term were considered more feasible, maybe because it's easier at hand, right? In general, I would say that there were common things, for example, right now, short-term activities to make the best out of all the material of this week. And to coming back to the topical groups, and bringing this back actually to the people who are actually working with this daily and to see how this spreads, right? Mm-hmm. There is this factor there. There is a lot of literacy, working on common definitions that could be useful. It is not easy to converge to a common definition sometimes, but there is a willingness for sure for many people to have common definitions. So at least those who want to, they find that this is very important for them and this could actually work. And then in these terms of common definitions, and I'm coming on to here, maybe a little bit more here, some people claim that they will be super relevant, you know, if it could be, you are taking your notes, right? So you will report. Okay, yeah. Now, with this activity, and this was mentioned so many times, yeah, I'm looking at you just because, you know, we were putting dots. Did you know that we were putting dots for impactful, relevance, and then feasible? At least in my group, sadly, I would say those involved in the exchange and trying to have an harmonization with the Commission, they had very few yellow dots, that is for feasibility. So in a way, it feels like this is not easy, right? So this is a note to take and to see how can we make that this is actually more smooth. If we all want the same thing, if we are shareholders of the same, sailing to the same direction, how can we make this better? I'm going to put on the glasses to make sure that I'm not missing too many things. A lot of capacity building. This is considered that is something that it can be very relevant. There is at our level, many things resonate with what Elena was saying a moment ago, but there is also at another level. So there are different levels of asks, let's say. The members, the partners need to get trained up. It's a little bit too challenging sometimes where the partners are sending people that are not perhaps too familiar with the concepts and again. Then there is the alliance level on how we can support each other. There is an inter-alliance level, right? And then we have member states, we have the institutions, let's say, not only the Commission, but the institutions, and how can we actually influence to make this more meaningful, right? Toolboxes, repositories, to focus on high-value tools and not to try to spread it all, but try to give as maximum value as possible from the effort we put. And there were a couple of ideas, just dropping ideas here and there. The possibility of actually have specific calls on to use some K2 or something to do, for example, specific developments, perhaps for tools that can be helpful for something, a specific training, specific activities that actually can help, you know, cross-cutting elements and can help the alliances here and there, right?
Thank you.
Do I have a little bit, 1 minute more? Yeah, okay. Yes, actually, some of the things we're mentioning very much resonated with that. The importance to have clear functions and clear roles for these jobs, and to add value to that, right? So in a way, the contradiction of an impact manager who is someone who needs to look ahead, but it has a contract that is very short-termed, right? 0 seconds, not even 0 minutes, 0 seconds, yeah? So I will leave it out there, yeah? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helena. Thank you very much, Rafa. We have a plan. We have a roadmap. We have a toolbox. We have created it together. So the next steps, we will work now on putting everything together and have a nice report so we make sure that all those recommendations and these documents that will reflect our lessons learned and our desires are put together in a document so we can then have those actionable tools that we were aiming for at the beginning. So aligning project management and impact management, that was the initial idea that was presented by Jonas and Gloria at the beginning. And with all these outputs, it will depend on all of us and our involvement in the topical groups and the next steps suggested, the successful of the future plans, which in my opinion are vibrant. So I hope that we will work together on these different opportunities. So since the time is very short and we should finish at 4:25 sharp, I just remind you that at the end of the presentation there will be a QR code that you can scan for it's a feedback survey, but in any ways you will receive it in your email. So don't worry if you don't have the time, but it will be displayed there. So we have the privilege today to count on Iwona Jablonska from the IACIA, and again, Antonin, who was in the opening session and has been together with this today. So his final remarks, I think it will be very, very interesting to get his perspective again. So I kindly invite you to come on the stage with me, please. So big applause for them. You can sit here. Yeah. Thank you. Antonin. I changed you the bottle. I already opened that one. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you very much. So one of the ideas that have been present during these 2 days, it was also from Antonin's contribution, is that So we are working in this paradox of short-term project management and alliance long-term strategies. So, and we are in a very complex transformational process of the higher education in Europe. This is the aim of the European Commission. We are shaking our universities. I will take the advantage to be here with you as a family. We are taking the advantage to shake our rectors and vice rectors' egos, because this is something that I have been discussing with most of you, and this is part of this. And we have important challenges in front of us. So we are not simply managing projects. We are helping to shape the new ways of working and the new structures and the new ways of cooperation in the higher education in Europe. So Iwona, I would like to start with you. And from your perspective, the IACIA, we have discussed quite a lot these days the tension between this short-term and long-term logic in project management and alliance. Project and impact managers are navigating that complexity on a daily basis. So looking ahead, how do you see this balance evolving in the next phases of the European University Initiative, and what do you see as the main priorities for these years to come?
Mm-hmm. So, very, let's say, large question. So I will try to be as much concrete as possible. So we don't know exactly how it will be. What will be the future initiative, because there are some discussions, consultations for the moment, and you are also contributing to them with your lessons learned and experience. But for sure, you know, this somehow this tension that you raise so many times and all the time between the project logic and the long-term commitment should be somehow we need to find a way to reconcile these elements. And this tension between the strategies and operations, you know, so maybe there is something to do here, you know, to connect better, you know, the operations with the strategies. And indeed, the project manager in such an initiative is not the classic one, the standard one. This requires really some kind of skills that go a little bit beyond just a simple project management. And this somehow having in mind this long-term commitment and engagement, being able maybe to even revise it depending on the collaboration, ways of working. These are the kind of somehow responsibilities and contributions that can also be made by the project managers. I think those you know, kind of capacities are really critical in this kind of initiative. And indeed, in this initiative, we have this annex, joint long-term mission statement. This is very, very different to any other program that we have in Europe, that is funded in Europe, because there is long-term engagement, and we have narrow tools to manage this initiative, because within the grants it is not easy. And I think that beyond the idea of having the rectors involved, the highest decision makers involved, was also to make difference, to accelerate, to catalyze, and also to somehow act, at least on institutional barriers. So I think that this, if we are able to reconcile this project logic, so given that there is indeed this tension between operations and strategies, between the short-term contracts and long-term engagement. So to which extent it is possible just with EU funding. So we need to ask the questions, what is the alliance? What is the commitment of the institutions? We want to continue what we want to do together? And maybe once we answer some of these questions, we will be more able to reconcile the operations and short-term operations with long-term strategies, because the project must serve the alliance. If the project does not do, this role somehow, it will be difficult to have this long-term mission somehow magically realized.
Thank you. So, thank you very much. So somehow, as project managers within the project, we should create the conditions for our future job opportunities once the project is over. Let's say that this could be a way. So, Antonin, maybe you want to react on this?
But you are not alone. You should not be alone.
No. Of course.
Yeah, maybe just a quick reaction. I mean, I really agree with you. I think it's important to ask what the alliance is and if the people of the alliance want to continue working together. But I think it's really important to never lose sight of why we're doing this to start with, why the alliances are actually starting with. And this means bringing in the policy reality. And I bring this in because I know this was a topic of discussion we were having yesterday in the groups, which is we have more and more of the alliance communities that are becoming aware of the alliance that exists in their institution. However, many of the communities don't know what the European Universities Initiative is, which means that you may be aware that there is an alliance, there's a cooperation program, but what is the goal of this alliance? Why was the European Universities Initiative started? And we discussed this, it's a challenge. How, Dorothy mentioned this yesterday in the discussions. You have 18-year-olds that are coming in that don't even know what a university is. How are you going to explain a super large abstract policy reality? But I think there's a real challenge, and there's probably a solution to our problem here as well, to probably pedagogically explain what's at stake with this policy and why this alliance matters in the first place. So just maybe a compliment.
Yeah, so you are the translators then, how to translate this policy into something tangible, understandable, accessible to the sector, because it is about bringing back all the results of your experimentations to the sector, to the Commission, to the Member States.
Thank you. So that brings me to the next question, which is professionalization. No? So what we are mentioning are professional skills that we're expected to have, and it's a new profession. So how should we understand this professionalization in this context? Antonin, this question is for you. And what does this tell us about the kind of learning, support, and the recognition in this field of work we will need in the future as project managers and as alliance impact managers?
I mean, I think the professionalization aspect, I mentioned it yesterday a little bit. I think there's really something key, which is reconciling the three realities of the alliances that I was mentioning yesterday. So there's the policy reality. We've discussed it again right now. It's the overarching objective, maybe strengthening European identity, maybe removing transnational barriers to cooperation. There's a lot of this. There's the institutional reality, what you're actually building, an alliance, an institution. And of course, there's the project reality, how you're actually going to make this work. And I think the professional staff, and this isn't just the alliance coordinators, it's not just the secretary generals who need to embody these three realities. There needs to be a way to actually have everyone who's involved in building these alliances to have these three realities in mind. But I think there's a dose of training that needs to take place. And maybe the Commission can play a part in this, maybe member states can play a role in this, maybe it needs to be within alliances. But you need to have always a way for the people who may understand one reality to communicate effectively to the other level. And until we've achieved this, and until the alliances find a way to really articulate these three realities together, then they can't effectively communicate as well the results that they've been achieving with these alliances, because they operate in these simultaneous realities. So I think this is really key for it. There's been a lot of research done on it. I think I have to link back to the work of Agata Manino, who's here as well today. There she is, who's done really brilliant work on the professionalization of these emergent professions as well. So there's, again, I'll bring in as a researcher, there is a lot of research which is being done on the alliances. Explore this research as well. I think it's valuable for the alliances, it's valuable for the policymakers, and I think this dialogue makes things very, very useful and fruitful for all of us. But I just wanted to maybe just bring back one key aspect for the alliances, which a term that I haven't heard that much over these last 2 days. You know, the alliances are coming to the end of their pilot phase. And I've heard this a lot, you know, after experiments, after pilots, there's a new phase coming, and I hear this is a consolidation phase. And obviously there's a lot of existential challenges that the alliances are facing. We mentioned long-term funding. We mentioned, obviously, huge issues with change of leadership sometimes in alliances, which sometimes it's no longer a strategic priority for our institutions. We mentioned involving our communities, which, despite the fact that more and more are acquainted with the alliances, it's still very much a challenge. But I think it's very natural, facing all of these realities, that the alliances are asking themselves, what are we doing? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And how can we evaluate this? But there's a tendency, obviously, to move towards measurable impact. And this goes back, I think, if there's been this tension throughout these 2 days between what is the short-term project funding and the long-term institutional vision, there's always been continuously over these 2 days between what's measurable impact and what's incommensurable. And I have to bring it back to this idea of trust and people, which we've been mentioning throughout these entire days. And I believe that really this trust and people has come out of experimentation. And experimentation, I know a lot of you may have considered that it was a phase of the project, and we're now moving to consolidation, but I really like to think that experimentation is part of the DNA of the alliances. And consolidation will imply really continuing having this experimentation, because the trust that has been born and the interaction from the people which has occurred through the alliances is a direct result of this experimentation. So I really want to push for you guys to not forget that sense. And experimentation doesn't mean being fluffy, all up in the air, and doing things that don't matter. Experimentation does deliver results, and results which can be tangible and which are key to telling stories. We've mentioned storytelling a lot of times over these last 2 days, and I think this is very important. But creating these stories is also how you can communicate to your national authorities, to the conferences of rectors, to your rectors, to the European Commission, and this is how we're going to continue moving this initiative forward. I think it's a key moment for the initiative with the negotiations for the next MFF, and this is really a moment where we need to speak to the key stakeholders. And I know how difficult this is, considering the amount of work that's done, but it's now. So I just wanted to highlight this.
Thank you. This resonates with the meeting we had in Brussels on Tuesday, where we were discussing different funding models, where we were discussing also different way of optimizing reporting processes. So I don't know if you would like to react on this intervention a bit.
Yeah, so it is just this initiative indeed is, the entire initiative is experimentation, but it is normal that at some point we need the validation of the results as well. So for this reason, we also talk about the impact. It is about, what we bring back to the sector in general. So it will be, once we arrive to a certain level of maturity of the initiative, it will be also important to somehow consider these kind of aspects. And the alliances really need to work in a highly synergistic manner. So given all these, competencies, talents, skills they need, it is extremely important that the silos are broken. Even within one alliance, once in the project we have work packages, we have different things and deliveries happening. it is so important that all this is more and more synergized, because only then, when we talk about measuring aspect, it is really because we need to bring evidence, because at the end, you know, the policymakers, the sector, everybody needs evidence, and your storytelling would be much, much more powerful if it will be supported by evidence. So I think that these are the aspects to be considered for the next phase of the initiative, because, you know, we talk about this role model, it is used so much, but it is so powerful if what you are developing, what you are doing, can really support already yourself, your institutions, your ways of working. Of course, have value for students, but also can really shape the sector in the next years. So the question will be how the sector should work, what is the way the sector should evolve in the next 10, 20 years. So, and I think that you are the drivers of this.
Thank you.
With evidence.
With evidence. Yeah. As I said at the beginning, we have created now and we have consolidated the community of practice of the impact topical group and the project management topical group, and we have a roadmap. And that roadmap is offering some of the answers to those questions you are raising from our perspective, from our hands-on experience. So I would like to open the floor, because we have still 5 minutes, if someone in the audience has some questions from Ivona or from Antonin. If you would like to share some comments. If not, I have a couple of questions more, but it will be good if...
Otherwise, I have a reaction.
No? You would like to react?
Yeah, just a small, you mentioned evidence, and I think this is really key.
Yeah.
But there's one bit of evidence that I think we tend to take for granted a little bit. I know when I speak to alliances a lot, and I ask them, what's a distinctive feature of the alliance? They'll speak about what's their thematic characteristics, what's their shared institutional characteristics, geographical locations, things like this. But there's always one thing that comes back to pretty much all the alliances I've speaking to. They basically said that we've created a group of people who enjoy working together. And this notion of trust, sorry to bring it back to this trust is not just a condition for cooperation, it's also created a desire to work together. And I think when you set up the conditions for desire to work together, both between administrative staff, between students, between academics, you have a huge strength in terms of not just storytelling, but evidence for the legitimacy of an alliance to exist. People want to work together across Europe and across borders, which was not possible beforehand. So I think this is maybe not a measurable sense of evidence, but it's huge and something that we tend to take a little bit for granted.
Thank you.
I do have a mic, actually.
Yeah.
I really spoke. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay. Goes. There are, let's say, different drivers. Should I sit here? There are different drivers for working together, right? There are people more driven for a mission. We have a fantastic mission statement, so that we will, even in the most miserable conditions, we will work for that, right? There are some because they want to hang out with people that are like trust and we enjoy it and things like this, right? But there is another fundamental element, which are people maybe coming off my kind of background, like engineering and these kind of things. That is like there is a nice systemic process, that's where you feel comfort, and it was like, and this lag that it seems to be a little bit with a lot of tension. You were mentioning this, Ivona, there, right? So I would like to nudge a reflection on why do you think that there is this challenge between the perception that alliances mostly have about the interaction sometimes and the contradictions that say sometimes we feel faced when reporting for some things and this from the Commission, and the reality that we suffer. Because if we manage to put these three legs together, mission, trust, and hanging out with people we like, and then a nice organized process, that would be amazing, right?
I think that potentially, this is a big initiative with the tremendous magnitude of objectives and expectations. Potentially we have tools that are not adapted, to the, let's say, dimension of the initiative. So we know that because we are your mirror So then we have indeed this project, grant logic, and then long-term expectation. So I think that, and I hope that once we will be working on the future program, we will be able to somehow overcome or reconcile some of those. And for sure we need to talk, and I think that what we are doing in the agency, in terms of, also these reviews with external experts, all the webinars, all the things that are trying to cover the gaps, because what we are doing, we are just covering the gaps, and we are trying to adapt the tools to your needs, but it is only at this level. So I think there is a kind of a number of frustrations that are accumulated at different levels, and I hope that we will be able to overcome some of them by also discussing, and that I hope that this trust also between us is stronger and stronger. We are not just a funding body, we are really the guys that we are trying to understand what you are doing. We are reading your reports, we are reading your deliverables, we are trying to really deploy, we are deploying a lot of energy to support the initiative, because we really want you to succeed.
Thank you. So Antonin, very quick, because unfortunately we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Super quickly, I really like your mission, trust, and hanging out together, and maybe the Commission doesn't have the way to evaluate this. However, you can communicate this to your member states, to the member states. You can go together in the national networks that you've set up or whatever, and go meet your ministries and convey this sense of mission, that you like hanging out together and that you trust each other and that it's important for you. And I would really encourage anyone who can to do this in complementarity.
And
Agree.
we are doing it. Impact is not the process, impact is the change. And we are creating the change we want. We are doing it together. And today, these days, we have settled down the basement to keep on working together. So thank you very much. I would like to call the organizing team to come on the stage for this closing of the amazing 2 days event. Thank you very much, Ivona. Thank you very much, Antonin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please. Thank you, Jonas. Thank you, Gloria, Rudy, Liliana, Lucia, Angela, Vicky, Tove, Audrey, Gloria. Thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you.